Sexual and asexual reproduction. All living organisms must reproduce in order to pass on their genes to future offspring and ensure the survival of their species. However, not all organisms reproduce in the same way. Living organisms are able to reproduce either sexually or asexually. As with many characteristics of living things, there are advantages and disadvantages of both sexual and asexual reproduction. Sexual reproduction is the production of living organisms from two different parents. Each parent organism has specialized sex cells called gametes, and reproduction occurs when these sex cells fuse together. For this reason, the offspring that are produced in sexual reproduction have similar characteristics to each parent, but they are not identical to their parents. Therefore, sexual reproduction produces more genetically diverse offspring, which leads to greater variation and adaptability within a species. Greater variation and adaptability are key advantages of sexual reproduction. They allow a species to have a better chance of survival when faced with environmental changes. However, there are also key disadvantages of sexual reproduction. First of all, this type of reproduction requires two different parents. Generally, in the animal kingdom, only the strongest and healthiest individuals find mates. This means not all individuals are able to reproduce during their lifetime. Sexual reproduction also requires a large amount of energy for many organisms who nourish offspring before and after birth. This disadvantage means only a small number of offspring can be produced. Examples of organisms that reproduce sexually are elephants, tortoises, eagles, and many plants such as corn. Sexual reproduction is the production of new living organisms from a single parent. Since this type of reproduction only requires one parent, the offspring that are produced have characteristics that are genetically identical to the parent. This means that the offspring from asexual reproduction are the exact copies or clones of a single parent they came from. Since only one parent is required, a key advantage is that all organisms that can reproduce asexually are able to reproduce offspring. Another advantage is that asexual reproduction requires less energy, which allows for a larger number of offspring to be produced. This high rate of reproduction results in a much faster population growth. However, organisms that reproduce asexually have no genetic diversity and are not easily able to adapt to environmental changes. This is a key disadvantage since disease can easily spread through entire populations and completely wipe them out. Examples of organisms that reproduce asexually are bacteria, hydra, sea stars, and some plants such as onion buds. Three of the most common ways organisms are able to reproduce asexually are through binary fission, budding, and fragmentation. Fission is common in bacterial cells. The cell division the cell divides into two identical cells after duplicating its genetic material. Budding occurs when an organism, such as a hydra, forms a growth on its body that develops into a genetically identical offspring or organism and then breaks off. Fragmentation is common in sea stars, which is able to split into pieces, and each piece develops into a genetically identical organism. As you have read, organisms can reproduce either sexually or asexually. However, did you know that it is also possible for certain organisms, such as aphids and fungi, to reproduce through both methods? Regardless of the method, reproduction is a necessary and important process of all living organisms.